It was an interesting poll. I mean, are the public right to think that ethnic minorities are overrepresented on TV and in adverts?
Well, I think that the public opinion on this is completely understandable. I've said for some time when it comes to marketing and advertising, especially on the telly, I do think there's a sense of being over-inclusive, you could say, especially when it comes to ethnic background. And that poll also suggested that a notable chunk of British people also feel that LGBT communities are overrepresented on television. So I think there is certainly an element of overcorrection where you have people in those sectors who want to be tolerant, but by doing so, I do think there's a degree of overrepresentation when it comes to particular groups living in British society.
I mean, I did a bit of research about this, Rakib, last night, and I saw that the BBC in their annual report said that they had, for on-screen diversity, as they called it, 27.9% of black, Asian and minority ethnic people, which is way over probably about double the population at large. And a Channel 4 YouGov poll a few years ago showed that in a study of 1,000 adverts over 2 months, that 37% featured black people, despite them making up less than 5% of the population. So there is some evidence there that there is an over-representation. I guess the question is, does it really matter? Does anybody really care?
Well, I think it does matter, because I think that if you're going to be inclusive, that needs to be done in a proportionate way. I think this same poll by YouGov, by the way, found that nearly half of British people felt that disabled people are underrepresented when it comes to national television. And I've always said that disability is the neglected protected characteristic when it comes to the Equality Act.
Can I just say, there was a collective in the studio when you said that about the underrepresentation of people with disabilities. We all agreed, yeah.
And I think that's really important. I recently published a report on football governance in England, and I said that we still have a game, even though it's widely popular. I don't think it's necessarily disability friendly when it comes to match day accessibility. So I think that when we're looking at these particular figures, I'd make the point that this is just my personal observation. Then when it comes to the Asian origin population, that's notably larger than the black population in the UK. I also don't think that's necessarily reflected when it comes to national television. So it's also quite important to disaggregate ethnic minority groups when we're looking at representation in TV.
You talked about an overcorrection, and that's frequently the fault and failure, isn't it, when people overcorrect? They feel guilty in one way or another, or they feel things haven't been right for too long. How do you now counter that overcorrection?
Well, I think that there's no harm in looking at how we can have a inclusive arrangement. It's just that we have to understand that there's certain groups which are underrepresented and there's certain groups which are overrepresented. That's the reality of it. I also think that another group of people you could say which are underrepresented, I'd say, Esther, I think you may well agree with me. I very rarely hear a fairly strong northern accent on television.
I'm 200% with you, and we're going to have to end on that note.